Hey y'all, CB here at NBS Welding. 2 years ago I worked on a Pine Hill trailer, belonged to a buddy of mine. He moves these buildings. A lot of weight on these trailers. Did a pretty extensive rework on this trailer 2 years ago, and what I've got on the table right now is a torsion axle section off of that trailer, and she's got a little issue, so let's take a look-see. Right here's the problem. So we need to do a fixination here on this situation, and recently one of the things my buddy did on his own with his little flux welder is he had replaced this spindle. And he was out there late in the evening, tired at the end of the day with his flux welder in the dark, and got this thing welded on there. But it looks to me like there's some cracking here, and maybe some of this weld's a little cold. The spindle's fine. So along with repairing the issue that we got right here with this tube being broken, we want to do a little re-weld on that, and then we should be good to go. So let's do it. Working on this axle, I got two ARCCAPTAIN machines out here I'm going to be using. This is the ARCCAPTAIN Cut 55 Pro plasma cutter. We'll be cutting and gouging with it. I've also got out the ARCCAPTAIN MIG 250. Running both of these off of my 220 current, 220 volt AC. I've got this cord hooked up on a regular reel that you would normally use for 120 volt. I've been doing this and haven't had a bit of trouble doing it. Especially surprised that it doesn't even get these cords hot. Here's the 220 volt adapter I got plugged into the 220 volt outlet in the wall. And I've got power going through that cord reel, and then that splitter with both machines plugged into that same cord. Here I'm going to do some plasma gouging, and I get a lot of questions about how you do plasma gouging. It's a great thing to learn if you got a plasma cutter, and it kind of replaces a carbon arc. People often ask me if you need a special tip. I just turn the heat down. And the only other thing you need to know about it is it's kind of hard on tips to do the gouging. And a lot of times I'll keep old nasty tips around, and I'll use a crappy tip because you don't need a good cutting tip when you're gouging. And then if I'm going to do some cutting on some metal that I want a good cut, then I'll put in a new tip. This area that I'm doing the grinding in right here, because of that one bracket, it's been hard to reach into. And you can see I'm just trying a few different tools, and some things, are working out here for me. I had the big 9-inch grinder that seemed to reach in there, but the head, the gear head on the 9-inch grinder was so big I couldn't get it in there far enough. And I ended up taking a 9-inch wheel that was wore out down to about 6 or 7 inches, and I put it on a 4.5-inch grinder. And because the gear head was small, that allowed me to reach in there further, and I got this grinded pretty good. I wouldn't recommend running that big a wheel on your little grinder very often. It's obviously hard on it, but if you got to get something done, you got to do what you got to do. So we're getting this re-welded, and I started out just getting it sealed up with some really hot downhill welding. I'm up there around 22 volts and just smoking it together. And then I came back and ran vertical on it, and I've got some footage of that too, but came back and ran vertical on it. And this is more weld than you would normally put on here for a spindle, but when you got to cover up something that's already been done, you kind of got to go a little bigger to get it all fused together and fixed up. I was getting this thing raised up and put into position for the next step, and realized that now it's time to put in a new plasma tip. And that kind of reminded me of something I wouldn't mind showing you. This is a box I got at Harbor Freight, and I put this together with all of my ARCCAPTAIN stuff. Got my drive rolls in there. I've got all my consumables for my plasma. I've got all my different size contact tips, gas cups, and I got everything marked where I can see what I got. And I kind of like that clear lid where I can see through it, so I kind of know where I'm going before I even open the thing. But just figured I'd show you that, because that's working out real good. Now back to the cutting. I've got a new tip in the plasma now that I'm going to use it for cutting instead of gouging. And the idea that I'm going with on this cutting, where I'm actually cutting more than what's broke, is, you know, on something like this, we've got to do so much welding anyway. I just can't see a reason why to leave a whole lot of metal there to fight with to get this axle straightened. Knowing that I've got a lot of straightening to do, I'm cutting even more than what's broke, and I'm doing that to weaken it, just to make it easier for me to manipulate this thing back into the shape that I want it. You know, to get it straight and level and squared up, lined up. I'm just going to weaken it and make it easy on myself. So a lot of grinding work to get this prep for welding. And when I was trying to line it up, I ended up cutting a little bit more where there's some metal touching each other, keeping me from doing what I wanted to do as far as pressing things together. I had a 36-inch pipe wrench on it, twisting it for straight, several different types of clamps, a piece of bar that I was clamping there, to another way to manipulate it to get it in the shape where I wanted it. And it's just whatever it takes, you know. I've got two planes here pretty much that I'm looking at, and three important things I'm looking for. The square tube needs to be lined up with itself. That's one thing. The next thing is I'm going to get the square tubing level, and then the third thing is to get it straight in the other direction. So in the one direction, I'm pretty much just looking at it to line it up straight. In the other direction, I'm using the levels, because that's the direction it's hard for me to sight it. And as far as lining up the tube to tube, I'm doing that by eye also. And just whatever it takes is the kind of job, you know, you got to do here. You twist on it, you push on it, you pull on it with a come along, you lift on it with a jack stand, and you keep stepping towards improvement until you get it where you need it. And here, I've got it in pretty good shape. I think it's just as good as it's ever going to need to be to do the job it's got to do. And it was a little tricky, you know, here and there. I didn't plan on having to weld it to the table, but I ended up having to weld it to the table to get that one last pull. I had to pull pretty hard, and we got it done. We got her looking good. This thing's ready to weld up. All right, forgive me here, guys. Give me a minute. Let me do a little advertising for the channel. These are the NBS Welding t-shirts that we got for sale. You can get an NBS Welding t-shirt for $25 plus shipping. If you email Tina at nbswelding@aol.com, then she'll get with you on what your shipping cost is going to be and get you a t-shirt. Now, in the description of my videos, there's links to our Amazon storefront. If you do anything with Amazon, use our link to get there, whether you're buying items on our storefront or just buying something else. It'll help the channel if you use my link. We also are an ARCCAPTAIN affiliate, and the links to the ARCCAPTAIN site is also in the description of my videos. So if you use our ARCCAPTAIN link, then ARCCAPTAIN will know you got there because of me. And if you buy anything from ARCCAPTAIN, use the promo code NBS Welding 5%. You'll get 5% off, and the channel will get a little credit for that. I want to thank y'all for your support now. Leave me a comment, like my videos, and share them to anybody that you think would enjoy them. Thanks. Got 3 sides of this thing welded up here, so let's take a look. That ARCCAPTAIN MIG 250 is a fine machine. I like welding with it. I like MIG welding with it. I like stick welding with it. It's definitely the most powerful ARCCAPTAIN machine, although both of the 205 machines that I've got are really, really close. I don't think there's a huge difference, but way more powerful than a MIG 200. Flipped it over, and this is what we got to weld up on the other side. And you can see when I weakened that, I only left about 1 inch of tube still put together, just pretty much enough to hold it. Made it a lot easier for me to manipulate this thing. But now we got to put that thing together, and I want to show you what happened to me when I was welding this up. Right there, I just had a blowout. And that's something to be aware of that can happen to you on a sealed tube like this. I had run a pass, and I've got it sealed, and of course it's hot, and I'm welding on this hot thing, and the heat is creating pressure inside that tube, and my molten lava puddle is so hot it warmed up that root bead enough that it actually blew out. The pressure blew out my puddle, and I want to get a good solid weld here in the repair zone. And what you do is you take your hand drill and you go to a completely different area, and you just drill you a little 1/8 hole. And all that 1/8 hole is going to do is let that air out so you can't have pressure. And once I've got somewhere for that air to vent like that, then I can weld it up and get a good quality weld in the area where I'm working here. And then you're just going to let that cool down a minute. You know, and go back, clear out, clean up the area where you drill your 1/8 inch hole, and just weld it shut. Don't go real crazy hot. You don't need to do anything super duper when you do that. Just weld it up. So the next step is going to be what we're going to do about plating this thing. Obviously, we're going to want to strengthen it up and add some reinforcement. You'll see here, I've got this thing set on a 45-degree angle. I've got a 2x2 angle iron, and I'm cutting some angle cuts. And I'll tell you the whole point about trying to make angle cuts like this. When you're working on a structural member, a frame or an axle or anything like that, you really don't want to be making welds that are 90 degrees from the load. I always say, like on a vehicle frame, welding on a dump truck frame or something, you don't want to be welding on a frame straight up and down. The way the load is pressing down, all welds are going to have an undercut, and you know that's an area where cracking can start. When you're working on a structural member, you just don't want those welds 90 degrees. If you can put them on an angle, make it round, whatever you can do is going to help prevent cracking. One of the things I run into in this instance was some of the weld that I've made already was holding this angle iron back out of the way. So I notched it out. You could have ground the weld off either way. These came together where I decided to at least bevel one of them, so there was room for me to get some penetration down in there. But right here, we're looking at the spot where I didn't want to grind. I decided instead of grinding those welds off to get my angle iron to fit flush, that I'd just cut some of the angle iron out. You could have done it either way. That's just the way I did it this time. And one of the features here with the ARCCAPTAIN machines that I've learned to enjoy and use quite a bit, I'm flipping this thing over into 4T mode. And with that 4T, I don't have to hold the trigger. So when I'm doing a long weld like this, I'm just going to press the trigger. It's going to start welding and feeding wire. I can let the trigger go and weld. And then when I get to the end of my weld and press the trigger again, it'll stop welding. That's what 4T is. When you want to go back into the mode where you just squeeze the trigger and it welds and you let off and it stops, that would be 2T. It's also got a spot feature where you can pull the trigger and it'll just make a spot weld. You could use that on body work and stuff. It'd be nice. I don't use it much. But what I ran into here is I'm welding along and I run out of wire. And it kind of made me realize something that I sort of need to think about in the shop. I've been running these ARCCAPTAIN machines so much that I haven't been using my millers at all. And I've actually taken the one Millermatic 252 that ran out of wire and just pushed it out of the shop. I quit using it. This other one is actually got a spool of wire in it that's been in there for a couple of months. So I was realizing that I need to use that wire before it starts rusting. So I finished up what I was welding right here. Excuse me. I finished it up with the Millermatic 252. Wasn't a whole lot of welding left to do on it. But now we got to flip this over and put a plate on the other side. So I've left the DeWalt 872 chop saw on 45 degrees. And I've got a piece of flat bar that I'm pretty much going to do the same thing to this flat bar that I was doing to the angle iron. I'm going to cut it in a way that the end of it's going to allow me to make some welds that don't run 90 degrees from the load. And here we'll get that welded up. Hey y'all, CB here. I'm the No BS welder at NBS Welding. I'm coming to you today to tell you about the ARCCAPTAIN and NBS Welding welder giveaway. We're giving away an ARCCAPTAIN MiG 145 Pro, just like I'm welding on the bottom of this skid steer with right now. I'm going to tell you how to enter to win. You got to comment the word ARCCAPTAIN on this video. Share this video on your social media account. Subscribe to both the NBS Welding and the ARCCAPTAIN YouTube channels. And you'll be entered to win an ARCCAPTAIN MiG 145 Pro, just like I'm welding with in this video. Great little machine. Runs off 120 volt. I'm running 030 flux core wire on the bottom of this skid steer. And I got a Bluetooth connection with the ARCCAPTAIN app in my phone, so I can adjust my heat while I'm laid down underneath the machine. Don't have to get up and get out of position to turn my machine up and down. Make the adjustment on the machine while I'm staying in position where I'm welding, and I get right back to work.